click. So I am going to click it now, and we are going to go live. And we are live. Welcome everybody to the first fully built TKB live in quite a while, I think. This is like, was it 2 or 3 weeks that we just didn't have the whole crew together?
We didn't have the crew last week. Week before we did. Week before that we didn't.
Yeah.
So it's been a sort of a mishmash.
Turbulent times, but we're back to normal now. I'm basically rested up after Euros at this point. It took a little while to kind of catch up on sleep after the somewhat busy month that we had. Yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. We're going to wait for more people to come in, and I think we're just going to do a quick social media share just to make sure that everybody who wants to listen is here in the chat, and then we will start talking properly. While we're doing that, I am, however, going to talk a little bit about auto battlers. Is this something you're familiar with at all, Tom?
Only because you mentioned it to me earlier today. I thought that it sounded like some sort of knockoff Transformers series, but apparently it's a type of game, not a budget anime.
Yeah, I mean,
I really wish
Battlers...
Auto Battlers was a budget anime. I think that would be fantastic.
I would not be surprised if Auto Battlers were actually a Transformers toy line at some point. It sounds like something that they would publish. But what Auto Battlers are is... So, the first one that kind of became popular was a custom game mode in Dota 2 called Auto Chess. And since then, both Dota 2 and League of Legends, which are the two big MOBAs, they ended up publishing... Okay, I've shared to Zodiac and to Kuribrohs page. But yeah, so they ended up publishing their own official versions of it, and basically the way it works is you draft characters every round, and then you place them on a board, and then a round will start. Your characters will fight at first just NPCs, and then afterwards you'll start battling against other players' teams of characters, and then like you can build play sets where every time you get 3 copies of a character, they combine together to upgrade it, and then also you might have like dragons. So if you have multiple dragons on your team, all of your dragons will get a certain buff. So you have this like really cool draft environment. And you can also track what other people are taking, because the more a character is picked, the less likely it's to appear in the draft. So like,
okay, so it is like a proper draft format in that regard.
Yeah, it's like, it's actually, if you're looking to practice drafting or getting good at card counting, then it's like super good, because it employs all of those pieces of strategy. So I think it's super interesting. It's we'll have to see how long the auto battlers actually survive, but if people haven't tried them out, I would recommend checking out Auto Chess or Teamfight Tactics. I'll probably do a little bit of a stream of Teamfight Tactics after this stream.
I did briefly like Google it, and Teamfight Tactics has some really cute little like fighting penguins, and I got time for that.
The penguin is your avatar, so while the characters are fighting, you just get to run about in circles as the penguin taunting your opponent. So, you know, there's even that space for that little bit of playful BM, which is always
a little bit of flex. I like that.
Exactly. Also, in other completely unrelated news, before we get on to Yu-Gi-Oh, I just saw a post where you're familiar with Jiraxis for Hearthstone, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so there used to be the interaction where if you played Jiraxis and your opponent had Repentance, your Jiraxis would be set to 1 health and then become your hero, and you'd be on 1 health.
Big oof, yes.
Yeah. So they have fixed that bug, which is very sad because there was a guy who on the Hearthstone
Oh,
subreddit had got his Draxus up to 60 health in hand, played it, and then it just turned into a 15 health
oh,
hero, which is very disappointing,
yeah.
and Blizzard need to fix their game. But anyway, guys, thank you all for joining
Sorry,
us.
Harry.
Sorry for the delays. We have let everybody know, so anybody who wants to know is probably here. So, I mean, we're free. We're free of the competitive format, at least for a while. We can kind of look at directions that could potentially be good after the Forbidden Unlimited list. Before we go on to discussing possibilities for the list, though, I believe you have a certain archetype that you're going to be talking to us about.
Yeah, yeah. I've been shuffling up BA. It's been good fun. Um, there's a lot of stuff that deck can do. I don't feel like any of it's quite good enough in the current meta.
I mean, in a
Um,
mine world, the deck struggles.
yeah, but we did see a list actually doing really well. I mean, there have been a couple of lists coming out recently. There was the 60 card build from the Mega Regional at European Championships. Didn't think that build was great, but it was nice to know that people are still trying it and having success. And another smaller build, I think it was 40 cards, got top four at an ARG, possibly the ARG Invitational, just this weekend past, playing a list with Hydrolander and Block Dragon.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was like an interesting selection of singletons and three ofs. Like you can get away with playing multiples of some of the Earth monsters, because you can banish them with your Block Dragons. The
Yeah.
build was very much streamlined around it has to find a Block Dragon to really get going, and then it builds off Rock Spirit and Gigantes on the back of that to also help keep down the duplicates on the Earth monsters. But yeah, it had a load of cool stuff going on. It played all 11 Burning Abyss main deck monsters.
Just as
Well, all,
extenders into
yeah,
Dante, basically, or
yeah, yeah, yeah. Generally, you will be using non-Burning monsters to summon the Cherubini,
yeah.
and then following up with Burning Abyss to summon the Dante, because you only need one Burning Abyss monster at that point, whereas you would need to have two to start your combo on the BA cards. But you can do it either way around. Both work effectively. He was also playing one copy of Sea Archiver, which is a card that
Ooh.
I've wanted to have more of a look at. Uh, I think it could work really effectively in a more danger heavy list. It's very nice in that it's never a dead card.
Yeah.
As long as you can get to your Cherubini, you can trigger the effect in hand when you summon Seer off the graph and then just special summon it at that point. But if you've been able to discard it for an effect earlier in the turn, either getting value off a danger discard at random or for Predaplant effect, and I think Predaplants are really good in that deck right now, then you just have it as another free resource from the grave. And for the most part, the resources that you get out from the grave are the biggest problem with them is that they suffer if you don't have a way of putting them in the grave. And like I was just really pleased with seeing Sea Archiver as having inherent ability to mitigate that problem with the sort of Destrudo summoning condition of you can do it from hand or grave.
Yeah. So, I mean, is the deck like? So, one of my big fears with BA in this format was that, last format it was very much the premier danger deck, and then Thunder Dragon effectively creeped into that space and kind of said, hey, look, I'm the big danger deck, pushed Orcus out of the spot even. Orcus just couldn't go big enough, so Thunder Dragon was just like, oh, all the dangers are mine.
Thunder is so cool right now. Like, that deck is mad.
What does BA offer that Thunder doesn't at the moment?
Dante.
Right, so it gives you that more...
He is the Traveler of the Burning Abyss.
I mean, he is. So getting that graveyard interaction and being more focused on that.
Just just being Dante.
Okay.
We aren't going to sit here and lie to you and say that Burning Abyss has any kind of competitive edge on Thunder Dragon, because if you are trying to win a tournament, not that there are many tournaments that are particularly important to win short of going to Worlds, then Burning Abyss probably isn't the deck for you right now.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that Burning Abyss isn't the deck right now, because there are other things that you can do in life besides trying to win tournaments. Weird as that sounds.
Wild.
Um, and like PA is really fun. I get like massive nostalgia kick from Summon Dante. It's
Mm.
cool. Um, it's a deck that I've been kind of sad that I haven't been able to play for a little while. And now I'm really excited to be looking at it again, seeing what's up, seeing what I can do. Yeah, it's exciting.
I mean,
Like I haven't played a single game with it yet. I've just been solitaring and I've still been like, huh, this is cool. There are so many ways that I can go with this. It's not going to stack up great at the moment, but it's possibly in a position where, given the right FNL hits, it could actually be a real deck. Um,
like
and who
BA
knows?
BA isn't a bad deck right now. It's just not one of the
No,
best decks. Like it,
no, no,
it's
no.
it's
It's
very
a viable deck.
comfortably a good deck. It's
Yeah.
just there are decks which are currently doing a lot more than it, and so it's hard to justify playing. Um, do you have any kind of spice that you want to discuss at the moment, or would we like to kind of?
I'm currently sorting through a list. We can talk about it later. Let's save a little deck profile for slightly further on in the list. And like I say, it's a deck profile. It's not like I have come to a conclusion that this is the list I would currently play. It's just going to be a yeah, I've been having a lot of fun, and this is what I've been shuffling up because it's fun. And like when we get to it, if anybody in the chat's like, "Hey, have you tried this?" No, maybe I haven't. Like, I am absolutely interested in hearing
Communal
other
deck building.
ideas. Yeah, yeah, I love getting a little theory on the go. But yeah, we'll segue off this and come back to it once I've had a chance to like get it all in order so I can talk it through and maybe make a bit more sense.
Cool. So, forbidden and limited list. I mean, this is kind of the big discussion point for most players at this point because, I mean, competitive season is pretty much finished. The format feels very played out at this stage. Like, it's quite a diverse format. It's super good for people who are looking to get into the game because you pick up Salmon Great and you have a playable deck. Um, but there's not much space left for deck building at the moment. Are more the deck building rewards don't feel impactful enough, I think, is the problem. So, like, we saw loads of just crazy lists at the European Championship, but we saw loads of just crazy lists with, like, very wildly different directions all topping the
Yeah,
event. And that's a problem, because if you're getting that, it means that the tech choices are less important,
yeah.
either because the general shells are just strong enough that they just do the thing anyway, or else variance in the format is just absurdly high. And I don't think the variance is too high because the decks do their thing pretty reliably. So it just means that like the general core is sufficient. Like if you are playing Salmon Great and you end on Dweller and that beats your opponent, it doesn't matter
Yep.
like how many Perros you're maining, how many moles you're maining, because the deck still just does its thing.
Yep. If you're playing Striker and you can bait your opponent's interactions with whatever your bait is, and then activate Mystic Mine, you've probably won that game. It
Yeah.
it doesn't matter which card you played to force out every piece of interaction your opponent has. When the mine sticks, the mine has stuck.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's just break it down and look at each deck one by one. Um, I think the best deck to start with is really Salmon Great because it is that core part of the format. And I think Salmon Great is really important for the game right now because it is super accessible and it's a relatively fair deck. I was thinking a lot about what I could potentially hit in the deck. And, there's the options of, oh, well, you can hit Sunlight Wolf to 2 so that they have to do kind of more weird stuff after their first turn. Or you can you could hit Gazelle to reduce consistency. But I think something that could be a really interesting hit is actually hitting something like Dweller, where like Dweller isn't a core identity of the deck, but it's such a powerful card, and it really informs a lot of how that deck plays at the moment.
So yeah, if Alec is watching, he'd be very happy with that idea because Alec is like the number one opposition to floodgate effects.
Yeah.
And even more so than like floodgate cards, which can be outed with spell and trap removal, he hates floodgate monster effects because once they've resolved, there's nothing that you can do about it sort of reactively beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, so that was my kind of thoughts on Dweller, is just, it's not an exciting card. If there are graveyard effects that we don't want in the format, let's kick them out, and let's take Dweller out as well. Or, it's frustrating because you could just print cards that are functionally similar to something like Dweller, or just give us an ultimate rare Dweller. I'll settle for either. But
I mean, we have Forbidden Graveyard.
Yeah, exactly.
It's silent graveyard now.
Yeah, because it's not a forbidden spell. But if you hit Dweller in Salamangreat, you could leave the rest of the Salamangreat the exact same, and the deck would take a significant hit, but it would still be totally playable. And I think it's really crucial that Salamangreat does not get overly hit in this list, because it still needs to be playable, because I think it's still a very good deck for people getting into the game right now.
Yeah, I don't think that there's like a problem with the power level of Salamangreat, and particularly given that their strategy is really very fixed in what it does. It's trying to drag everyone down to their level and beat them in a fair fight.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how much higher than their level the other decks are. At the moment, the other decks are up here, and Salamangreat pulls them down a lot.
Yeah.
But if they were up here, then it would still win the games where Salamangreat doesn't stop them, and lose the ones where it does. So, like, Salamangreat kind of doesn't need that much of a hit in that way.
The one thing I'd be afraid of with Salamangreat is the fact that while it exists, the kind of like fun control decks just become very difficult to play. So, like, Teller Knights is a deck that people might want to play. Just completely unplayable because Salamangreat is just the better deck. Like, it has so many tools that if it doesn't get hit at all, then it's just going to become the dominant deck of the format. Because, like, if you bring down the ceilings, even though they can win the games that it doesn't manage to pull them down, just by being just purely so consistent, it's going to become more prominent. So yeah, I think like hitting Dweller would be hilarious and would be a very interesting direction to take things.
It would definitely change things up. It would force the deck to go in a sort of a slightly different direction going first, which nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I guess probably just have to. No, the other option that you could do is just ban Jack Jaguar.
Yeah, I mean, hitting Jack Jaguar does a similar thing because you just make it more difficult to enter the Dwell.
And you could leave Salamangreat being as consistent as it wants to be, but you force them to work if they want to have a rank 4 rather than just resolve full combo.
You also like super hurt their late game by doing that though.
Yeah, but I don't think you need to hit anything else if Jack Jaguar got banned.
Yeah, so I think hitting one of those like super core but not identity defining cards would be a really interesting hit.
And there are other cards that kind of do what Jack Jaguar does. Isn't there one that like returns 5?
Yeah, there's Mole which returns 5, draws 2, I think.
Yeah, you could force people to play things that like they wouldn't want to play. Like in the same way that Sky Striker is now having to play Hercules base.
Yes.
Because it lost recursion, and it still exists like in a form of a deck that works really nicely, but they have to pay sort of like a deck building cost to be able to run that, and that's fine. It makes things interesting.
And that's the thing. Like currently, Salmon Great isn't running any compromises. It's like it doesn't even have to compromise on gazelles because it gets to play triple Cynet mining. Like
Yeah,
everybody else,
let's just have nine gazelles.
Striker with his one reinforcement of the army, whereas Salmon Great's just like, I have
Engage
all these
also searches
gazelles.
Ray, but
I mean, if you're engaging for Ray, you're very sad generally.
I don't think you're sad if you've drawn engage.
You're sad when you draw just engage because it always gets ashed. We had it happen on stream. I've had it happen to myself a lot.
Sure.
Whereas when they engage or when they ask your writer, you're just like, whatever, that's fine, because then you have the engage as well. But yeah, so realistically, it would be quite cool to see one of those more kind of dramatic hits on Salmon Great. Realistically, though, what we're expecting is probably hitting something like Gazelle.
Yeah, we've just discussed all of these like real interesting ways to hit the deck, leave it with its identity, leave it nice and consistent, and just bring it into line with the format. And in fact, we'll get like Gazelle to 1, and it will still do exactly the same thing, but slightly less often.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the debug hit though. If you hit Gazelle, because like debug got
hit. The debug hit was so bad.
I mean, everybody just started playing Buffalo. Although, like,
and then Cynet Mining came out, and you didn't even need Buffalo anymore.
But everybody played Buffalo. Like at the European Championship, most people were on triple Buffalo. In the finals, we had a Buffalo list versus a debug list, which was very confusing. Like, and again, that kind of just goes to show, like, Salmon Great, a lot of the time, it doesn't matter what else you have in your list, because you have your gazelles and you do your thing, and if you do it right, it works. It just works. So, I mean, we've given our rough ideas. There's not really much else you can say about Salmon Great. You could, like, kill Sanctuary. That would be funny. But, there's, like, lots of things you could do. But the most realistic one is going to be hit Gazelle, which...
Yeah. There are good ways to hit the deck. There are realistic ways to hit the deck. And, yeah, it'll be the realistic one.
Yeah. Very sad. Moving on from that, we will move to Orcust, which has definitely been the biggest loser this format in terms of it's super high represented somehow. Like, I don't understand why the deck is like
so
almost
cheap
as represented.
To build an Orcust deck.
Sure. And like, there are a lot of
even
cool
cheaper than Salamangreat to build like a no Sky Striker Orcust list.
Yeah. Like, I feel like Orcust is really close to being Zoo. If you remember the way there were, like, those bajillion different Zoo lists where, like, you just had, like, Zoo plus whatever engine, and it's a deck. But the problem was that Zoo was bonkers, and Orcust would be bonkers, but Lancia exists, and it's in this weird place where it's not quite as control a deck as something like Striker, and it's... not quite as combo.
Any one Orcust card isn't full Orcust combo.
Yeah, exactly. It's clunkier. it loses to Lancia. It loses to Lancia. Everybody's citing triple Lancia.
Still the most played side deck card because it gets like the double coverage on Orcust and Thunder. Orcust like slipped from being the deck that everyone was kind of scared a little bit of, and then Thunder became the combo deck everyone was scared of, and they still lose the same things. So Orcust didn't see any relent from falling out of being like the top spot on that line of things.
Yeah, so I mean, I would love to see Lancia ban plus hit to Orcust.
Alec? Is that you?
Like, but what does Lancia actually give to the format as a question? I guess I'm just on a very heavy, just like ban all the floodgates vibe.
I really like cards that only see play when they are kind of narrow hosers. So stuff like Droll and Lockbird, Lancia, Abyss Dweller is like loads of other card games have stuff like that, like hard counters that, like, when you first pick up the card game and you're like, why would anyone ever play this card in their deck? Because
Yeah.
like you're not going to play against the spellcaster deck most of the time. Why would I want to play destroy all spellcasters? But then you realize that games at tournaments, side decks exist, and you're like, oh, okay. And having the existence of those hoses means that an archetype or a game mechanic will never be too dominant, because if it becomes too powerful, it will fall victim to its own hoser. So, like, we even saw grass decks becoming too powerful, and it started falling victim to people just played 60 cards.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely get behind it's good to have interesting deck building cards, like just cards that are powerful and are fun to side in. But the issue is that if there's no counterplay to them at all, it like really hurts the play experience. Like, there is no kind of like race with Lancia. It's just either I see the Lancia or I don't see the Lancia, and if I see the Lancia too late, it's completely dead. And I don't like those kind of decisions that players have to make. I would much rather see cards that are a bit more rounded or that are more likely to be seen. Like, it's not an unforgivable card, but at the same time, I'm not convinced that it's a fun card.
Yeah. What do you think would be a more fun design for a card like Lancia? I think maybe like Drolland Lancia would be a much more interesting card.
Yeah, having some sort of requirement for activation, or else having it block after X amount. Like if Lancia were a summon limit where it says your opponent can only banish twice this turn. You know, something like that is a lot less egregious.
Yeah.
If you had it so that it can come down after their second banish or after their first banish,
yeah,
something like that.
If it was Drolland Lancia,
yeah,
then it would be fine.
Yeah, and that's why Droll is fine. Like if you could just shotgun Droll, it'd be bonkers. It'd be insane. But like there's lots of potential to play around a Droll.
Plus.
Yeah. Just like activate Pot of Greed, chain Droll. You're dead. Yeah, so I mean that's
players keep doing that to me.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like if you have slightly more conditional cards, it makes it feel a lot better when you resolve it properly.
Yeah, I can get behind that. And like I hadn't even considered the idea that a card like Drolland Lancia could exist, but I already love like how that would work as a mechanic.
Yeah, I would love to see that sort of stuff. And that's the sort of thing that I want to see as our TCG exclusives. Like, make just playable cards that are, like, engaging and push the game in different directions.
How did you feel about no material?
Like, it's super restrictive, and again, it suffers from the fact that, like, you know, yes, it is a playable card, and we see it being played a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot better in that regard than the absolute trash danger cards that got printed in Dark Neostorm that should never have seen the light of day. Like
are in danger.
I feel like those cards were designed with good effects, and then Konami realized that the dangers had already gone too far, and instead of taking them out of the set, they just made them into booster trash. And I hate booster trash. It's the worst kind of card.
I mean,
like,
there's
nobody
always...
gets happy about opening an unplayable TCG exclusive. Like it's not an anime card. There's no little Timmy that is waiting to see the card that Yugi and his friend. It's not Yugi. I don't know. Revolver, is he a guy?
Revolver is the Boral guy.
The new structure deck guy. Yeah. No Timmy is waiting to see Revolver's new card from this booster pack because, well, no, they are. But You Are in Danger is not that card. and it's not that card for anyone. And like one of the takeaway things, I think it was either from like a Hearthstone or a Magic Insider design review article, was like, you don't have to please every person with every card, and you shouldn't try and please everyone a little bit. You should make different cards to please different peoples, but make sure that every card that you print like evokes a strong reaction in someone.
Okay, I think this
Like,
is a really good thought, but we are somewhat limited on time, and I think we are very overstuffed today as is. So we will take this, and if we get time, we'll come back to it at the end, because I would love
okay,
to discuss game design. But I think we'll need to move on. If Orcus is going to get hit, what would you expect to see hit?
like there's the headline hits that's like Mermaid or Orcus Nightmare or Rusty Bardiche. I kind of don't feel like it's going to be Mermaid
Yeah,
because of the
the
reprint.
reprint.
I think the Mermaid would be the best hit. I think Mermaid is the most interesting hit. It forces the deck to be an Orcus deck rather than a place two monsters on the field deck. Um, is it going to be Bardiche?
I could see Rusty getting hit, but at the same time, I think without the rank up magic, it's much less egregious. When rank up
Yeah.
magic was a card, I felt very strongly that Rusty was just bonkers because it was just a free link tree
There
that
are two banned rank up magic cards.
oops,
Ah.
oops,
But
oops. Um,
yeah, I think I'd be really sad to see Orcus Nightmare banned because I think that without, I think you just get rid of Mermaid, and Nightmare is a really important card for the deck when Mermaid's gone.
yeah.
But I just don't know. I really want them to ban Mermaid. Um, it would make the deck much more interesting and much more fun to have in the format.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, realistically, it's probably Mermaid, maybe hitting Galatea a little bit.
Yeah, Galatea to
And
one would be a really interesting hit.
yeah, that would actually be very interesting. It would force you to play stuff like Langirsu, just so you can cycle the Galatea back. And
Yeah,
that's the sort of stuff which is cool. Like, we've seen that the Kagari to one was a.
even Longersu isn't effective for cycling Galatea back because the deck doesn't have any inherent way to get Galatea banished.
Sure.
Like you have your one Galatea and you can bring it back with symbols if you want to summon it back with symbols, but aside from that, that's your lot.
Yeah.
You could almost see a world where a deck might want to play two symbols, which kind of interesting. I don't think I hate that idea, but again, it sounds more like a reality where you don't have Mermaid and you need to start with Orcus cards.
I mean, Symbols is just a win condition, right?
Yeah, it's not a starter. It's really awful to see.
I mean, it's awful to see, but it can win games in time. Anyway, so that's a rough idea for what.
So dated.
Orcus. We need to work on getting more material, just more feature matches.
Only
I
there
mean,
have
you
been
don't
events
have a house in
since then.
France, so we don't have that. So moving on from that, Sky Striker, like I'm
Yep.
quite happy to see mine go. If everything else
Yeah.
is hit heavily, we just get rid of mine. Everything else about Striker is fine. Like,
At least put it to one.
yeah,
I'll be very upset if mine doesn't go to one, and I'll be a little bit upset if it goes only to one.
yeah. I don't know. I mine to one is probably fine. It means you still like super heavy punish the Thunder decks, and then you also just get bullied by anybody who has any sort of spell and trap removal in their deck. So that seems fine.
Yep, and it
But
stops mine deck from being a thing if you only have one Mystic Mine.
my no win con best deck. Yeah.
That's not the kind of ASMR we need.
This is why you get a microphone, Tom. Yeah. So I mean, I don't think there's really much else. I don't think there's much else. We'll just do an ASMR stream next week. You guys heard it here first.
I might actually be away next week, so I'm going to Portugal.
You didn't tell me this.
I might be home in time for the stream. I really don't know. I'm flying into London next Monday.
Tom
I
to
don't
one on
know.
the list, please.
I'm already at one.
Yeah, Striker, I mean, you can hit other stuff, but I don't think there's really anything you need to hit. If you're not going to hit mine, then I think you definitely hit multi-roll, but multi-roll isn't as egregious as mine.
I think that if mine only goes to one, Striker still should have another hit. Like, maybe you put Engage to 2. It doesn't have to be anything big.
Sure.
It can just be a little, like,
Up.
do a little bit less of
It's
what
a
you're
little
doing.
slap on the wrist. Stop drawing triple engage turn 1.
Yeah, don't resolve so many engages in a single turn.
But 4
But to be honest,
engages is the only
Engage
way
needs to go to 1 to stop people from engaging thrice in a turn. Thrice.
4 times. 4 times. Which kind of brings us to the last deck, which really matters, which is Thunder Dragon, Guard Dragon, Crusadia. So first off, we've seen...
It's not even Thunder, it's just Guard Dragon, Crusadia.
Yeah.
Like, Thunder is an optional tech in the Guard Dragon deck.
Importantly, E-Man they made a Facebook post today about Joshua's list.
Yeah. It was a really good list.
They very amusingly called it Thunderless Thunder Dragon, which I appreciate because I constantly forgot. I just looked at the list and I was just like, this is just Thunder Dragon. And then Joshua's on stream to me like, it's not Thunder Dragon. And I'm just like, you're playing all the Thunder Dragon cards except the Thunder Dragons. Still seems like Thunder Dragon to me. So Crusadia Guard Dragon or Thunderless Thunder Dragon. Same thing, yeah. But yeah, the Guard Dragon
include the Thunder Dragons if you so please.
Exactly.
And he was also playing Frame Lord Zeta, which is one of my favorite cards. Like, when Master Rule 4 got announced, I bought a set of Zeta for £1, and I don't think I've played them outside of Cube, but I stand by that purchase because I was like, well, this card only gets better, and sure. It fits what I like cards to be.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair card almost. It's too fair, I think.
It does at least, I think, have the bonus of not being locked on main phase in the same way that Omega does. I assume that they both started without that restriction, and then they actually tested Omega, and they were like, this is silly, let's change it.
Yeah, being able to attack and then still in battle phase go, get out of here.
And being able to steal your opponent's draw before they get to their main phase.
Yeah, that too.
Like, if your opponent top decks their only card, Omega can't steal it if they play it as the first thing in the main phase.
Which is really important.
Yeah.
It also means you can't frame it either because they get to play it, then you chain Omega, but you've missed your chance to activate your negation. In Guard Dragon, realistically, Alpi needs to go, I think.
At least.
Alpi, we have seen time and time again that cards that say pull any card from your deck are bonkers, and Alpi puts it onto the board for you.
Yep.
And its restriction, its restriction in Crusadia at least was somewhat awkward because you had to go into the Sparta and then move the Alpi, and if your opponent went Veiler on either or Ogre, you're very sad. Whereas now you get to do your little Triforce of Alpi, Pitsy, and Triple Burst. And so, even if they stop your Alpi, you're just like, oh, Pitsy brings the guy back and I go into Saryuja anyway.
There is no punishment.
I'm not a big fan of that. I think Saryuja, there's no reason for that card not to be at 1.
Yeah. Yeah, there's never been anything good for the game that played more than one Saryuja. I mean, you were saying before, you weren't even sure if there's anything good for the game that's played Saryuja at all.
Yeah.
but
I would agree
there's
with that, but
definitely not been any healthy deck that plays multi. It was like Omega. Nothing that you wanted to be in the game played more than one Omega.
yes,
So
yeah.
there's no reason for it not to be limited.
Like, I think Saryuja is particularly clear, though, because of the fact that, like, the difference between seeing 4 cards from a Saryuja and seeing 8 cards from 2 Saryujas is massive.
Yeah.
Like, you go from, like, 4 cards, you're most likely getting your ideal hand. With 8 cards, you can be playing those, like, wonky one-ofs, like, epidemic virus and stuff, and just search them from your deck. And you already have the, like, Beatrice, Griffin combo if you want to have that as something playable in your game. So yeah, just throw Saryuja into the corner.
How is Saryuja not hard ones per turn on the summon and the draw?
Firewall Dragon.
He's at least banned.
I mean, he is, but yeah, I think realistically,
eventually,
hitting LP. Like, I don't think there's anything too wrong with the Thunder Dragon stuff. If you wanted to put Colossus to 1, I wouldn't complain. But at the same time, I think it's, like, just super fair. Like,
the fact that you don't even need to play the Thunder Dragon cards displays just how pointless hitting the Thunder Dragon cards would be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was a specific tournament, but we saw... wasn't it Herman
It's
played...
not the first time that we've seen the deck not play Thunder cards.
Yeah. I mean, Herman, who finished 3rd, was he playing Thunder Dragons? I forget. I know he was playing, like, the cool Draconet build, which is a lot more exciting.
Yeah, he had Ib. I think there was Thunder, but I don't know for certain. I know what there was, I don't know what there wasn't.
Yeah. So, I mean, is there anything else that you'd want to see hit in Thunder Dragons?
Like, if you hit LP, you can get away with not hitting so much other stuff because you don't have a way to special Brotor from deck. And, like, all the other problem cards come from LP.
Yeah.
And if you have to draw them, they're fine, so long as you don't have 3 Saryujas to draw them with.
I think LP to 0, Saryuja to 1 should fix most of the issue with the deck.
And I don't care if deck's still good. Like, it's a really cool deck. Let it still be good, but it shouldn't be as good as it is now.
Yeah. Gonna look at a few quick questions before we go to the next subject, which is, first off, Harry is asking, why don't we stream on Twitch? Logistics. I only have so much bandwidth. YouTube is an easier platform to stream to at the moment. When I'm going to be doing Teamfight Tactics after this, it will be over on my Twitch. So yeah, it's exciting. Then additionally, Damien is asking, did we look at the tin promos, which said that they're going to be usable in any deck. These are the ones for the Gold Sarcophagus tin, which we have discussed at a
really
previous...
Cool tins.
Yeah, the tins are super hyped this year. But, I mean, yeah, they're interesting. The descriptions don't really tell us enough about, like, what the conditions on activation and stuff are. So, super hoping that they're, like, good, interesting, and kind of somewhat skill-based hand traps. But again, until we have a better idea of what they do, can't really say much more about them. So I'm getting correction, Herman was indeed playing Thunders. But yeah, Crusader Guard Dragon is still kind of core part of the deck. Particularly as Crusadia started going to replace a lot of the Thunder Dragon pieces to play around Lancey and stuff.
Have we not, like, I feel like there hasn't been enough talk of rodents, squirrels to be precise.
Squirrels. You want to go on to Highlander?
Yeah, of course I want to go. I always want to go on a Highlander. It was our thumbnail for the push to Facebook earlier. I was like, what is Highlander?
Squirrels. I mean, would you like to... We uploaded a video earlier today just briefly explaining Highlander, and it has the links for 3 deck lists that you can check out. There is the Squirrel Highlander, which Tom is going to start talking about in a moment.
Can I just show the world the squirrel deck?
1 second. I'm just going to explain the rest. There is Starter Deck Link Strike, which is awesome for introducing people to the game. I still strongly believe that it is really, really good. I don't think Tom has played it yet. So I will need to bring Link Strike over to play next time I'm over, Tom. And then finally we have Tom's BA list from Portsmouth LLDS last year.
Plymouth, different place.
They're all in the same geographical location, roughly. Anyway.
No, but we'll go on.
Take it away.
Okay. This is possibly my favorite format ever. I say ever like it's a chronological format. It was never a format. I don't think there has been any period in time in which every card that I'm holding has not been on the forbidden list or unprinted.
This is definitely one of the times at which there are the least number of forbidden cards in the list.
Yeah, I think there are only like
2.
3?
There's 2 at the moment. Whereas at the start, I'm pretty sure it had a lot more.
Yeah. But some of the cards have changed since then. So.
Fair. The list itself, we couldn't actually have visible on the card database because the official
it had
database,
forbidden cards.
The official database does not support trad. Sorry.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Okay, so this is a format that I built in 2014 around the release of new challenges. So, like, the working name that I use with my friends is Denko format. If you've ever heard me refer to Denko format, this is the deck I'm talking about. I own 2 copies. They're both the same. I'll just show you through one of them in a moment. At the time, I was traveling to ICSs with Alec, current Kuribrohs. Neither of us were at the time. And James Martin, a guy from Western Supermare, near where I live in Bristol. Like, he was a really good friend of mine. He got married, had kids, and never was seen again. But yeah, so the 3 of us put this list together, and it's really stood the test of time. Like, we took about a day coming up with the full list. And then there were a couple of cards that we were like, should we change it? And in 5 years, we've never been like, yeah, we really need to change it. Alex still doesn't like a couple of the cards in here, but they're all okay. They're all roughly the same power level. It's built around a core that's kind of like a goat control deck, but we didn't like playing goat control. We tried it a little bit, and we found that there were too many games that were decided sort of before they'd started. If one person opened like multiple pieces of Trinity, is my camera frozen?
Yes, I think so.
Back?
Yeah,
okay.
You're good.
If you opened like a much stronger hand in Goat, then things were over before they'd started. There were lots of like flashy plays in Goat, like you don't play duo on turn 1, you wait until the snake's in the grave and things like that. Yeah. It's all just a bit weird. Most of the time the flashy plays weren't even correct. Like, I disagree with a lot of them.
It's a very unintuitive format in terms of like there's a lot of heuristics that aren't necessarily correct, and it kind of becomes a format that self-informs itself because it just kind of like starts biting its own tail.
And I think the most interesting part about Goat format is the different decks that people play, but that's often kind of taboo, and like lots of people are like, oh, you're not playing Goat format. It's like, no, they're just having a more interesting Goat format deck.
Like the Dimension Fusion OTK deck.
Yeah. But if you want to play a game that has interesting back and forth player interaction, slower mechanics, lots of thinking, and that's what you're playing it for, then I think this list does it better. So I'm going to run through it now and show everyone what's in the deck for anyone that hasn't looked it up already. Ooh. How's that for an angle?
Nice. Yeah, it looks good.
Thank you, Dan, for this lovely map. Anyway, I'll start off with the monsters, getting in the little weenies first. Night Assailant, Spirit
You can
Reaper.
take the mat out of the bag, by the way. You don't have to.
I will at some point. I don't like playing on mats in bags, but whilst I'm not actually playing on it, I have no reason to take it out
That's
yet.
fair.
Magician of Faith. These are all like old staple cards that everyone's seen from playing Goat Control, and then we start to get a little more interesting. There's a card trooper. This guy is a really interesting, easily searchable body. You can get him with Witch or Sangan, and he goes up to 1900. That's bigger than most of the normal summons in the format, but he's easily counterable because he shrinks down small afterwards.
Yeah, he can also be shrunk by Squirrel.
What? Squirrel.
Oh no.
This is one of the 2 cards in the deck that everyone has to read when they start playing, and nobody realizes how good it is until they get battered by it. So
I mean, it's really important to note what Squirrel works, because it and Dark Ruler Hades are the only cards in the game which have the effects they have.
And Revived King Hades.
The most relevant.
I'll start off reading them out. This card can attack twice during each battle phase. It's kind of neat. 700 attack, so he swings for 14, which is relevant. Life points matter.
Yeah.
If this card battles, negate the effects of the monster it battled after damage calculation, including in the graveyard. So if he attacks a flip effect monster, the flip effect will not trigger. If he attacks a card trooper or a Sangan that's been set, the engrave effects will not trigger. If he attacks a Spirit Reaper, he won't kill it, but he'll negate its effect. And then he'll attack again and kill it. It gets over anything that's been set, and it's like a really scary problem card in the format, and it's the answer to so many things. So if you ever get a chance to play it against me, just be aware how good this card is.
Yeah, it is the definition of a cute card in all senses.
We have Neospatian Grand Mole and Mask of Darkness. As we mentioned before, we're talking about Highlander formats, so every card in this deck is a single copy, and we find that just kind of keeps things interesting. Sangan and Witch of the Black Forest. At the time that this was all put together, these were both forbidden. Actually, no, this might have been before Sangan was even forbidden, but Witch was definitely forbidden.
Sangan was forbidden at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. Because BA was the deck, and BA would have loved Sangan.
Yeah, sure. And they were originally played with their pre-errata text. I think now we just play them with the post-errata text because almost all of the time it doesn't make a difference, and it's easier when you're explaining it. Everyone, when I sit down against them and they start shuffling up, they're like, "Oh, do you draw for turn 1?" It's like, no, you just play the rules of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not GOAT format. There's no like priority for ignition effects. It's literally just Yu-Gi-Oh! But with a very specific deck.
Yeah, it's a curated list, which makes just a big difference to how gameplay feels, because you're not doing crazy combos.
This is played as errated, and everything is just up to current spec. One Tsukiyomi, again, another card that we see a lot from GOAT format. Works really nicely, still interacts in the same way. And on to some of the slightly bigger monsters. We have Dekoichi, DD Warrior Lady, Breaker. This card is insane. This is like one of the best value cards in the whole format. Tribe Infecting Virus. Alex not keen on this one. As you guys, I'm sure, are aware, Alex is a man with a lot of opinions. He thinks that Tribe's pretty weak, but I think that it's quite necessary in the format to counter some of the bigger monsters. Zephyros is a neat bit of payoff that you can get from Card Trooper, and also interacts really nicely with the continuous traps, of which there are 2. Ferret, Fencing Fire Ferret, really great card. It's
just a good card.
Neat power level. Doom Calibanite, again, it's a neat 1-for-1. It can be really easily interacted with, gets punished hard by Card Trooper. Airknight Parshath, Cyber Dragon, and Mobius. And then the one monster that's really a little bit different is Snowplow Hustle Russell. I need to get commons of this because it's the only holo card in the deck, and that really triggers me at times. But um,
It's a little bit off the
it's
screen. No, it's visible.
it's a little bit like a more balanced version of Gauze. You can only summon it when you're being directly attacked whilst you control a spell or trap card. So one of the premises that the format was built on is that we didn't want hand traps. We wanted the field to telegraph whether your opponent needed to be worried about anything. And this is a card that can only be summoned when you have a card on the field, so it didn't break that rule. Um, On to spell cards. Dark Hole Heavy Storm punishes overextension and a symmetrical effect, so you can't take advantage of it without being tricky. Shield Crush, Creature Swap. A lot of these are just like cards that we've seen in other formats.
I mean,
Shield Crush, we felt that Nobleman was a little bit overpowered and there was never any reason not to play Nobleman of Crossout, and Shield Crush there is counterplay to. And then some quick play spells, one MST, enemy controller, Book of Moon, and both Lance and Chalice.
yeah, the good one of the Forbiddens.
Yes.
I mean,
And then onto trap cards. We have Torrential and Bottomless. Similarly, Mirror Force and Deep Prison. A couple of pieces of like open spot removal, Compulsory and Wing Blast. Compulsory in this format is much less powerful than in Constructed because most of the monsters are not from the extra deck. So you do actually have to pay card advantage to be able to use this, but it's a very versatile tool that you can play whenever you want. Burst Rebirth. This might be a card that people aren't familiar with. Pay 2,000 life points, target monster in your grave, special summon it in face down defense position. Really useful with flip effect monsters. The two continuous traps are Call of the Haunted and Fiendish Chain. Both get great value with Zephyros. And the last trap is Divine Wrath. High cost with the discard, but is the only counter trap in the whole set. You know that you're going to end a chain with this. And it's very powerful if used correctly. And then finally, just as a sort of balancing factor, both to Snowplow, Hustle Rustle, and Cyber Dragon, each player has one Chimeratech Fortress Dragon. It really forces you to think about when you want to play those powerful machines because they can be punished with this just to sweep it off your field. I have 2 copies of this deck. I'm considering buying some more of them. Everything is dirt cheap. Like, excluding postage, which obviously is unfortunate, everything that's in this list totals less than €2.50 on Card Market. So it is dirt cheap to build. Obviously, it'll end up costing more because you have to go from different sellers. But like most people, if you've played Yu-Gi-Oh for a long time, will own like at least half of what's in here. If you've played Goat Control, you'll probably own more.
yeah. Most people will
you
own pretty much everything other than Squirrel.
If you catch me at an event, I will have 2 copies of this. I always have 2 copies of this with me at every event. So yeah, if we've got some time between rounds, come say hi. Maybe we can play a game. Whenever I get deck checked in a tournament, I pull this out of my bag and I'm like, hey, we got 10 minutes. Let's play a game. But yeah, that is my favorite format. And yeah, it's the only deck that I take with me to every event and have done for like 5 years now, and it's unchanged, and I still really love playing it. I don't think there's any other deck that I've played that consistently and still enjoy playing in the way that I like playing this. So, if nothing else, it's a small testament to how fair and enjoyable the gameplay is that it can just keep having that replayability to it.
For people that are interested in that list, we do have it linked in the Highlander video that was posted earlier today on the channel. There's a link to it and the other Highlander decks that we discussed. Again, we're going to be looking more in depth at Highlander during the coming weeks, so expect kind of slightly more long form. And if I can get over to the UK, then we'll also try getting some gameplay. I don't know if I'll be visiting or not, but it happens sporadically and without much notice. So we have two more things that we want to look at before we open to questions and answers. First off, quickly, Battles of Legend, Heroes Revenge. Battles of Legend, always a really successful product. Like the first Battles of Legend did so well, it just sold out everywhere. It of course was the first reprint of Minerva, the price card.
Yep.
This Battles of Legend is looking pretty strong too. It does have new archetypes. It has Vision Hero support. It has the Battle Wasps, which people are hyping up a little bit, but realistically, they're not going to impact the format too much until we see a list. But there's some really exciting cards in this list. I mean, we see the Boral Sword Dragon reprint. Obviously,
I'm just looking through it now, and there's a lot of good cards in here.
Yeah,
Does it not have Shadow Dragon?
Oh no! Shadow Dragon Ultimate Rare, please.
It has Beast, which we already have as a holo, Squamata, Hedgehog, and Falco. But it doesn't appear to have Shadow Dragon, which I really hope means that it's already like earmarked for an OTS pack, because that's not okay if it's not.
Hopefully.
Cyberstein reprint.
Secret Rare Cyberstein.
Yeah, that's a card that really needed a reprint. So happy to see that. You got some Sky Strikers. Yeah, there's a lot of cool cards in here. There's a lot of cards that were much more expensive than they should be for the amount of play they see, because they're so scarce.
The black and white dragons are getting ultra rare printings in it, which is really nice. It's looking like a solid
that wasn't
set.
around back when we got the supers, or didn't think to pick them up at the time, has been like stuck with cards that are more expensive than you'd really want to pay, and now there'll be a really nice accessible holo print for anyone to get their hands on.
I mean, we've seen that regardless, they are good as link climbers. I mean, you played them in some of your BA lists, even before you had the banish payoffs.
Some of the best like extenders for any kind of deck like that.
Yeah, and Shadow Dragon, it's weird that they wouldn't reprint it, because like it's been an expensive rare for a while, because even before now, like when like Minerva Sworn was playing it and stuff, it was like a €3 or €4 rare. So I don't know how much it is now, but it's definitely something that needs a reprint. So hopefully OTS Super to match the super rare beast from the old tournament pack.
Yes.
I mean, Battles of Legend, exciting. We've not looked at any of the TCG or we've not looked at any of the decks in it in depth. But we'll definitely discuss it once the set's actually out, because we generally don't look at cards until they're actually real in our tangible TCG game world. Definitely a set to check out, though. Finally, would you like to show people your BA ideas that you have, because there are a few people asking about it, and then we'll do questions and answers. So if you guys have questions while this happens, I will write them down so we can just hop into Q&A after.
Let's come down here again. Okay, so let's have a look at what I've been playing. I mentioned earlier, I don't think that this is necessarily like the optimal Burning Abyss deck list, but it's what I've been shuffling up. I've been having a bit of fun with it, and I'd like to sort of like take it to a locals, see how it does, and build from there. I'm playing a really, really small BA package. Seer and Graph, Libic, and Farfa, with a tour guide to summon. Tour guide's still a really good place to start. It's not so important anymore, though, so I don't feel the need to play a Scarm. These two are obviously the main play that you're going off with your Cherubini. Libic is insurance against drawing one of them, and Farfa is a piece of off your beard. You don't need more stuff because your entry point is just 2 level 3s now. Will get you to see it to end on the, and you only need any level 3 extender to go with it because of the protection effect from Cherubini. Next up, for more level 3s and some starters. One Cobra, playing Oh no. Okay. Uh, these are really great as starters. Not only do they get you two level three bodies on the board to go into Cherubini, but they also add you an instant fusion to hand, which can be nice as the extra level three to go with your Seer a moment later in the combo. Uh, if this is a good starter, this is a good way to get to it. So I'll maximize my entry points. I'm currently playing two instant fusions. You could kind of get away with only playing one because you only really need one. The second is just nice to have a guarantee that I'll always be able to search a card. I don't want to give up on the free value if I have one of these in my hand. I'd rather search the second and have it as a discard fodder or increase my hand size for dangers. Next up, I'm playing Connector with Neospatian Aquadolphin. I think this is a really good summon at the moment. Being able to go into the Dolphin, you can or you needn't take a card out of your opponent's hand at this point. Like, you can kind of mix it up. If you think that your opponent would have ashed this if they had it, then you don't necessarily need to use the Dolphin unless you have something that you want in graveyard. Sometimes it's worth it just to have a look at your opponent's hand, but it's very much dependent on how the game is playing out, what you're playing against, if you think you'll get value from seeing their hand, and if you think you'll hit anything. You need an extender at this point to make it to the Cherubini, but then after that, you can bin off the Connector to get back your Dolphin and go with the Seer summoned from Graph to make the Dante. So being able to use this as two level 3 bodies is much more effective in this deck than it had been previously. Because back when I last played BA, we weren't summoning Cherubini, and the fact that a monster was level 3 was irrelevant, sort of, after you've summoned the first Dante. Next up, we have 3 Psychics. It probably makes more sense to play more Wielder than Tracker, but I haven't actually been going to any tournaments, so I was just playing the first things that came to my hand. I played is currently signed Cube. Oh, no, that's not good. Sorry to anyone that is experiencing connection issues. It looks like the stream is for a little bit. Things are bad. Okay. Um, Dan has muted his mic because he was having some connection issues. I'm sorry if I've been cutting out at all. If anything isn't clear, I will do a quick run through at the end so that everyone will at least get to see what I'm playing. I'm sorry if the reasoning hasn't all come through. Next up, we have Destrudo. Destrudo, particularly if you've gone for the opening with Connector, has options on being a level 3 or a level 4 monster. I think that the deck might want to play a rank 4, possibly Pistol, but is really nice. And alongside them, great options for playing second. The deck is naturally designed around playing first, but having a backup strategy in something like Yazi and Mehmet is always really nice. I'm currently playing the Orcus package, but I don't know how I feel about it. It takes up a significant amount of main deck space without offering as much as I'd really hoped for. So this is quite a small Orcus package, but it still is 11 cards in total. And I don't know that it necessarily brings enough to warrant that much deck space, particularly considering the prevalence of artifact at the moment. It just leaves you in a weak position. Now, I do need to take a little time to stop and think about what I would play if I don't have these, because they really add so much to the strength of your turn one opening board, and I need to work out something to be doing instead if I'm not playing it. But for the moment, I'm testing out and I'm feeling really torn. So if you guys have any particular thoughts on that, like whether you think that the deck needs this at the moment, I'd be interested to hear it. But at the moment, I'm looking for a reason not to play them because they've been causing more problems than they've been solving. I've been playing one Galaxy Cyclone. Your grave to at least let you play for one more turn, so long as they don't have a metaverse. Foolish Burial. I feel like this card's a really strong extend or starter, which kind of makes it worthwhile, but I'm trying to keep to few cards where possible. I think the list's about 46 last time I counted. So I don't want to play cards just for the sake of it. If I take out the Orcust engine, I'll be able to cut it down to 40, which is really nice. And then the last three cards in the deck. This one is a proxy because I only own one copy and it's in my cube draft at the moment. This is Chaos King, Doom King Baladroch. I can't remember what. Doom King Baladroch. And then Necroworld, Banshee, and Zombie World. I think that this is such a good combo right now. One of the interesting things with Necroworld Banshee is another card that I don't currently own. In the extra deck, I'm playing Shooting Riser Dragon, fresh off the Dark Neostorm special edition. It lets you have something really neat to do with Destrudo turn one. If you have a monster, any up to level 6 non-tuner, you summon out your Destrudo, you make Riser, and send ban. You don't mind that you can't use the effect next turn because you didn't need it till your opponent's phase anyway. And it brings your Shooting Riser Dragon down to level 3 so that you can combine it with the Seer Cherubini and be able to go straight into the Dante with. And at that point, your combo naturally gets you to be, which then when it goes to sends the Baladroch to the grave and banish this, activate the Zombie World, bring out Baladroch, and you've got two negates set up for your opponent's turn. Well, and again a banishment, but against a lot of decks, it effectively gives you two real pieces of interaction. Zombie World actually causes problems for some decks, like Great really struggles under it. But generally, it's just for the interaction here. I'm also kind of interested to see if there would be a way to work in an engine that allows me to naturally summon a rank 6 Beatrice, because then you don't need to have anything interesting to get to these two. You can send one with Beatrice on your turn, one with Beatrice on your opponent's turn, and you've got the full setup with these two in grave, which also gives the additional benefit of if you've found a way to mill or discard one of these, then summoning rank 6 Beatrice lets you send one of them on your turn and still have the ability to send fire as a piece of interaction on your opponent's turn. So just like this is a really neat way to find interaction from a different source. It's cards I haven't yet played. I picked up this ages ago and I've wanted to play it for a while. So this feels like a good opportunity to put things together and find a way of making things work. And it's also, with the loss of Fairy Tale Snow, it's a card that works effectively with Shooting Riser Dragon, which is another card that I kind of wanted to play. And dropping Riser to level 3 just seems to tie everything quite neatly together for the deck. So yeah, I want to try it out a little bit, see how it works in a live situation rather than just in theory. But it seems kind of fun. And given that that is a large portion of why I want to play a deck like this, yeah, I'm just excited to play things that seem fun. If anyone has any, I have some pieces of extra deck, but it's super shaky and it's close to 50 cards at the moment. I'm playing a Cherubini. I'll go through a little quickly. I'm dedicating a lot of extra deck space to Orcus package, which is another thing that I would like to change. Maybe cards, it finds everything you need. This is obviously super important. It's a card that you could almost consider putting a second copy of if you didn't have to dedicate deck space to this. So that's something I'll want to be trying out fairly soon. So yeah, this is like 40% of your extra deck gone already, just looking at Orcus cards. Admittedly, this is a card you'd be playing anyway, but even just a third is still a lot. Curious. This is my proxy for pushing Rise of the Dragon, which I think is really interesting. Obviously, there needs to be a Yazi in here as well, and probably a Ludo. This is a proxy for any level 3 instant fusion target. If you're not playing stuff, then you have space for Millenniumize Restrict as well, which I think could be a really interesting choice. Particularly if your combo able to leave from destruction in the end phase and your opponent's turn. It's very much work in progress. It's been really fun to play, and I'm looking forward to some more. Again.
Okay, I'm back. Are you back?
I think Dan's frozen. Oh,
I'm fine. I think everything's running smoothly. I think we're back.
Yes. Your video.
Yeah, I'm just gonna
be
turn off my video.
Okay.
So yeah, we are having bad lag, so sorry about this, everybody. Hopefully able to continue from here. Tom, can you still hear me? Okay, so YouTube is telling me that my connection is still fine. Tom's connection seems a little bit shaky. We will have this list up later. We will post the actual list itself up physically to the Facebook, so you'll be able to check it out there. As it is, I think Tom's issues is unfortunately a Skype side issue rather than a stream issue, so I can't fix it immediately that way. I'm hearing you now, Tom.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, magically it works.
Should I do a quick audio run through? People are saying that they didn't hear the list. I'm not going to go back through any of the explanations, but I can quickly go through what was in the deck a second chance in case it wasn't clear enough on the first run through.
I think what's best is to just make a separate post for it on Facebook. That way people have just like a physical copy that they can see. So we'll get that up probably tomorrow, because we are running out of evening very quickly. If people have questions, feel free to ask your questions now. You can, of course, ask questions about the Burning Abyss list itself. Or just anything really, but that list looks really cool. It's pretty cool seeing the zombie engine. The zombie world is like surprisingly strong right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting card. I don't know without playing actual games how effective it is as a standalone card. in solitaire, it's obviously only there to facilitate the Baldrock, but I think that it certainly has some application outside of that.
Okay, so BA is asking, is Darkworm good in Orcust? And have you tried Norlis yet?
Darkworm is a card that I kept wanting to play and kept convincing myself not to play because it kind of didn't feel right. Is a card that you can play as sort of with Foolish Burial or a Dragon Shrine as a one card special summon a body, which is a level 4, which is kind of neat, but it also interacts poorly with Korrobane, which I very much dislike because I feel like the Trickstar package is one of the best things that the deck has going for it.
Yeah.
The fact that it's dark is largely irrelevant because it has to be summoned onto an empty board anyway. You could consider playing one of the other Supreme King cards to take a card off the summon, but I don't think that there's great value in that line of play. So it just felt like it didn't quite fill a niche that you couldn't fill better with any other engine. For Norlis, it's not an engine that I've tried out yet. I was trying to stick to something that I thought was going to be really fun to play. Norlis is a deck that I really want to play at some point, but it doesn't offer the kind of gameplay that I want to have with a Burning Abyss deck. So it's not something that I'm rushing to play immediately when I get this like golden opportunity to just play whatever I want.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's still a card that I really like the theory of, but it's a card that I want to play when it just happens to be good for a tournament rather than a card that I want to play because I think I'll enjoy it.
Yeah, BA says if you don't own Trickstars, it's still good, which, yeah, if you don't own Trickstars, it seems like a reasonable compromise.
Yeah.
Shebal asks, what is your opinion on Block Dragon BA?
I really like Block Dragon. That's another card that I've owned 3 of for a very, very long time. I picked up 3 Block Dragons when Dark Illusion was around. I've still never played a single one. But it's been a card that I've really liked the theory of for particularly Burning Abyss. It's been obviously very strong in Gem Knight strategies. And I was very tempted to throw together a list very similar to the one that we saw from the ARG over the weekend. Yeah, it's a very good card, but it does something that's fundamentally different to the list that I've just put together. So I don't think that there's a hybrid where you would play both Block Dragon and the zombie package. Could be wrong there, but it seems like they pursue different avenues. And I want to go a bit deeper down this route before I start looking into Block Dragon.
Yeah. Interesting question from Lucas Tremel, who appears in the chat quite a lot. If Snow was off the list, do you think BA would be as strong as it was in previous formats? This is like a really weird question because the first thing you have to say is like, well, I mean, Thunder Dragon exists and it would also just abuse Snow.
Yep.
So you have that like...
The last time that Snow was legal, Thunder Dragon was the best deck to play Snow.
I think Thunder Dragon just became the best deck when it was abusing Snow. It was like very close to it.
Weirdly took a long time for Thunder to start playing that card. I think when the Thunder Dragon deck first took off, people were playing Snow, and I felt like it was a very difficult matchup with BA for a long time. Well, no, not actually for a long time, but I felt like it was tough.
Yeah.
And then the consensus fell away from playing Snow. The matchup game became free for like many months. I was just sort of like loving every time I got paired up against the Thunder Dragon opponent because it was so easy to beat them.
Yeah.
until they all realized that no, we should be playing Fairy Tale Snow. And then it became almost an auto lose for the last couple of weeks of January. Thunder Dragon was near unbeatable with Burning Abyss. And if the format were to be unchanged now, but with Fairy Tale Snow, then we would still find that Thunder Dragon would be playing that card a lot harder than we are in Burning Abyss decks.
Yeah. That said, I mean, BA is just so much better with Snow. So in a weird vacuum where it's just BA, yes, BA would love to have Snow, but it's not the best abuser of Snow because it doesn't get the payoffs Thunder Dragon gets. Chris Blair is asking, quick question about the dates for YCS London. Have they been announced? London was announced. We assume that it is correct, but it wasn't fully approved. So I think the general consensus of the community is that it's probably happening, but it's not been officially confirmed.
Yeah, I would reckon that it is almost certain that it will be on, but there is some issue preventing them from officially announcing it. Maybe it has to be officially announced via the Comic-Con channels before it can be officially announced via the Konami channels, so that could have just been a mistake. But yeah, I would be very surprised if there is not a YCS London on the last weekend of October.
Yeah, it's always a good event, and you get entry to the convention, so always fantastic. Also being asked, are we going to YCS Ghent? I think you're basically
Probably.
a definite. I am like still deciding between Ghent and Niagara Falls because
Reasons.
it's tough. Canada's a cool place. The next question is Rescue Ferret ? From Dark Wolf, who we have definitely heard from before. Cherubini is often 2 arrows without a normal summon, so is Ferret good? I think Ferret is best when you have... I mean, 2 arrows is fine for Ferret because you get 2 level 3s, right?
Yeah. In theory, if you have made it as far as Cherubini without using your normal summon, then Rescue Ferret is great. However, the good hands are the ones that get to Cherubini without a normal summon, and there are plenty of hands that don't get to Cherubini without a normal summon. I'd prefer to play a deck where the normal summons help me get there, not add value if I get there. Particularly when things like Ash Blossom end up in the mix, and it turns out that there was something that interrupted your setup or interrupts your Cherubini. You want to be forcing out your opponent's pieces of interaction early so that you know what you have to deal with. And I think that starting on something like a Mathematician or a Predaplant to get the negates on the table as soon as possible is preferable in my eyes to something like a Rescue Ferret that could get shut down later on.
Yeah. So we're going to quickly go through the last few ones because we are basically at the end of the ball. It is midnight. The clock is ringing. So Salmon Great Cards are 1 card Cherubini. Would you consider them in BA?
Yeah, I've considered it. It's a package that I very much like the idea of, but I don't think that it brings anything above the Predaplants unless you can reliably trigger the special summon in hand effect of Gazelle.
Yeah.
And you might be able to. I haven't shuffled it up. I haven't checked the numbers. You'd need to be playing a 40 card deck, I think, to get really good value from it. Yeah. But I like the idea of that engine. It just doesn't add anything unless you get that special summon. So for me, like, any normal summon that you play has to be a +1. Like, it has to advance you 1 piece closer to your end board that you're aiming to. And the other cards that you play have to be extenders sort of in their own right. And if you're playing cards that don't meet those conditions, so they're garnets, like, they have to be really good. Like the engine that you're playing that card for needs to be really good. And Salamangreat isn't good enough unless you can trigger the in-hand effect.
For sure. Final question, and then we are going to call it an evening. Is what are your thoughts on the Ib Orchist deck?
It's really cool. I really like Ib as a card. Being able to make plays before you start trying to do Orcust things is always really nice. You can bait hand traps. You can end with some amount of a board, even if you get Lanciered. It's a really cool deck. It has to play a little Garnets, so kind of sucks going second. If you lose the die roll, you're a real dog in the matchup, but it's definitely an interesting deck. It's one that I like the idea of.
That is us. That is everything we have to talk about today. I mean, there is still so much more that we could talk about, which we will bring over to next week.
Design.
Thank you all very much for joining us. We do have the intro to Highlander video from today, which does have lists to all of the Highlander decks that we mentioned, so you can check those out. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to contact us in the comments of this video or else over at the Facebook page, and we'll try and get back to you. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you have a lovely Monday evening, afternoon, or morning, wherever you are. And we will be back soon with more Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. And now I press the end stream button and